I wanted to give a little bit of a life update and also tell you how I deal with rejection, which is not easy if you grew up the same way that I did. Yeah, I've been getting rejected a lot and in many various ways lately, and I think it's always hard, but especially when you are a people pleaser like me and have been fawning for such a long time, it's really, really difficult to deal with rejection and to not, like, it's almost like every request that you make that is rejected and every person that you ask something, them saying no, is like kind of puts you in the position of re-questioning every life choice that you've ever made. And that's not really a reasonable way to live, but it does kind of shatter my identity, and it's really hard to deal with. So I'm kind of going through that right now and trying to breathe through it and trying to be okay with it, because it's unavoidable, and I will explain why. But again, even though I know why, even though I know it's unavoidable and it's actually preferable, it's still hard. It's still hard. Rejection is still hard, but that is the cost of a beautiful, beautiful life. So I must learn the lessons, and I must be present and kind of go through it. But yeah, so I have written down, actually, trying to stay a little bit more organized. But my first tip is to breathe and sit with all these feelings, which are not easy to sit with, and feel that rejection, kind of all these like feelings that it brings up, and sit with them, you know. I think I certainly have a tendency to try to avoid, you know, kind of the pain. I mean, I think we all do. We run towards the pleasure and avoid the pain. That's how we live. But I think running towards the pain, or at least be willing to sit with the discomfort that it creates within us, is actually probably the way to deal with it, you know. So pause for a second and just breathe through all these difficult emotions that it brings up and all this difficult story, because I certainly grew up in a way where I was told that I wasn't really good, you know. I wasn't, yeah. And so that rejection, instead of kind of being like, oh, just one person said no, it kind of gets added to a pile of other people that have said no, or said that it's some, like, I'm in some way I'm not appropriate. And so it gets added to that pile, and that's a really big pile. I think it's unavoidable to have a pile like this, but I certainly read it as this is my fault and it means I'm doing something wrong, instead of rejection is just an unavoidable part of a really abundant, beautiful life, you know? Yeah, and just pausing and trying to breathe through all these very sometimes confusing, conflicting feelings, and just be willing to sit with myself in that discomfort and just exist, just feel it all. Where, like, I feel that rejection, particularly in my throat. And yeah, just be willing to sit with those uncomfortable physical feelings and I certainly try to kind of transform them into art. I mean, that's one form, but I also write either in my journal, but also like as articles that I publish on Substack. So it does help to kind of move it in the body in some way, either sublimate it like psychologically, or move it through exercise, like, you know, in some way. But I think like the first step before moving it is just accept that sucks. And, you know, it's an unavoidable part of life. The second part is seeing rejection as misalignment instead of a identity shattering event. Because as I said, I think I see rejection as being something that is, just it makes me question every life choice that I've ever made. Am I appropriate in asking what I asked and getting rejected? What did I say wrong? What did I do wrong? Am I wrong? And sometimes rejection is just rejection. It also doesn't really live within you. It's someone else. It doesn't say anything about me. It just says that it's a mismatch in what we can give to each other. So it doesn't actually mean that there's something wrong. It's just the wrong thing. It just can't work that way. And so instead of using it like as I'm doing something wrong, I've asked something wrong, I've done something bad, is like I've just asked the wrong person. The ask, as long as it's authentic to you, and that's another part, as long as you can really be in touch with who you are authentically, and so therefore ask things from a place within you that it feels authentic and in like within your own integrity, then that rejection won't sort of hurt you in the same way, because at least you were yourself through it. The ask was authentic to you. And I think that makes it better, because I think I used to fake a lot of myself and personality. So I used to people please and try to ask things in a way that I thought was appropriate to the other person, but they weren't really rooted in my own authenticity. And therefore, when I would get rejected, I think it used to feel even worse, because I was like, I've been trying to avoid being rejected and still got rejected. So I think at least when you are present and authentic to yourself, that rejection feels more like a realignment, to be like, I'm glad I asked, it didn't work out, it's fine, I can move on. Again, all these things are really well, like I know them all clearly, but it's still hard. And so I think like through all these waves, because that's how it is, all these waves of difficult times, even though you know these things, you have to do that pause and breathe and move all these like feelings through the body and evacuate them in some way, to feel all that disappointment and maybe shame, like to see what are the things that come up, and to name these things, to name the guilt, the shame, the that like the kind of the identity shattering element of like, did I ask too much, or was I, again, because it kind of like, that's the blueprint that I have, for myself, that I'm asking too much, that I'm asking, that it's not appropriate. But I'm trying to move away from shame. And so I can no longer sort of play into these narratives, because I think they're false, because again, I've been doing a lot of work to come back to myself and come back and show up as an integral human being to who I am. And actually, that's another part, like asking something as yourself is probably one of the bravest things you can do. It won't always work out. That's life. That's inevitable. But it's really brave to stand there and be honest with yourself about what you need and ask it of other people and risk being rejected. It's incredibly brave. So if you're in that place where you've asked something and you've gotten rejected, it's so brave of you to have done that. It's so incredible to have tried. And again, that's how life is. You wouldn't want also, even if it does work out, even if you do try to convince the person, and that's maybe moving to a point 3, but you can't really convince. There is a part of me that wants to convince and over-explain and over-justify, overreach, to fawn and people please and over-communicate and get out of myself, which is a work I've been doing for so long now, that I've been trying to get back into myself and back into my own reality and experience. And so if I do over-explain, I do over-justify, I do over-apologize, or I do whatever, like something, I won't be within myself anymore. And even if it does work out, it's probably the wrong thing, because again, I wasn't doing it as myself. I'm trying to jump into the other person kind of experience and in some way manipulate their experience and their truth, you know? And A, I can't really do that, but B, it's not even preferable, because even if I do manage to convince someone, what kind of experience would that be if originally it's not something that they want? Rejection is something that you want to create an aligned life for yourself and for others. It's not really possible to live any kind of beautiful, abundant, creative, expansive life where you have to convince others. And the reason I think that personally I have been in that place where I've been trying to convince others of things is because I was disempowering myself, I wasn't trusting myself, I wasn't believing myself, because I thought I couldn't possibly find an aligned life. I thought I needed to make it to be everything to everyone. And if I was rejected, it was the worst thing ever. And now I'm learning to see it as actually a proof of concept of like, great, I asked, they said no. That's great. I'm glad that they were able to say no. I'm glad I asked. But, you know, what's the option also? To not ask? To then therefore never speak your mind, or to not, like, you know, risk? Because that's another part, is like, sometimes being aligned and honest and raw and authentic to you will lead you to decisions and life experiences that will be aligned with you. And I'm guessing, I'm not there yet, but I'm guessing it will feel like incredible. It's like a match made in heaven. Something I have is something that the other person wants, without me trying to change myself, without me trying to, you know, to get out of my skin for it. It will be something that will feel so special, because it will be rooted in a mutually understanding and mutually respected way. And that sounds so much better than having to convince and over apologize or contort myself into a pretzel to make other people finally accept and love me. And that's kind of like what this is about. Is the rejection is particularly hard because I feel like I won't be loved and accepted as myself. And that's scary. That's something that I learned in childhood, that for me to be able to get love or to get what I wanted, I needed to people please to get it. I couldn't possibly get it if I was just myself. I couldn't possibly get it if someone couldn't possibly choose me as myself. Like that sounds impossible. And I don't really believe that anymore. I don't believe that. I don't believe that, because I think I'm gaining self-esteem for myself, and it no longer feels that impossible for me, for someone else to think I'm great too. But it's true. It's true. It's true. And for somebody else to be like, hell yeah, you know, it doesn't sound that impossible. I think for a long time it did sound impossible that someone, like, I'm thinking of jobs, like that someone would say, oh my God, everything that you have is everything that I'm looking for. I couldn't think that. And I'm starting to be like, no, I'm sure, you know, I'm sure it will be exactly, I'm sure it will feel exactly right, because I was like, it's going to be exactly what I want. But that's another part. I don't think, from the place that I'm in, all the things that I imagine are impossible, are sort of a bit like, my imagination is stuck in the past, or in patterns that were, I don't want to say unhealthy, but like unhelpful, you know, to me. So whatever my imagination has is probably not rooted in the most kind of expansive, beautiful version of me. It's rooted in a very probably scared and, yeah, kind of really scared part of me. So whatever my imagination can come up certainly won't match the reality that I'm trying to build. And so maybe that's another part, to not listen to all the imaginations because they're inherently flawed. I think it doesn't serve at all to live kind of in the future because we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. And so also if you try to imagine kind of the worst case scenario, at the end of the day, you don't know. So it's a waste of time. But it's no longer like a absolutely maddening idea that I will live a expensive aligned life that I would have created because I was being rooted within my own authentic self, which I'm discovering and building now. Experimenting. And maybe that's another point, but well, I kind of touched on that because the other point is that like rejection is the cost of an aligned life. Rejection is unavoidable but preferable. And I kind of touched upon that as well. It's like that's how it is, that you want that. You want to ask more and more and more and to be told no, 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 so that you can refine that life. And the quicker you ask, I think the quicker you also get to that point, because the quicker you can figure out, can you do this? Do you want this? Can we like agree on this? Yes, no, and that's it. It's like a job interview, you know, you go, like if you have deal breakers, like say them, you know, like say the things that, you know, are important to you, because it gives like opportunity for others to give you what you want. That's another part. I thought like people didn't want to, that I wasn't worthy of help, or that I wasn't worthy of like getting everything that I wanted, because I think there was a part of me, that just didn't believe. I didn't believe that, like I didn't have the self-esteem, you know, and you have to watch my previous video about self-esteem, but I didn't have the self-esteem to kind of believe that, you know, people would want to help me, or that I deserved to be helped. But in reality, people are really happy to help and be there for you, and you do have to ask though. You have to ask, because people can't guess. Some people might extend their hand and offer you, but that's not a guarantee. So if you do have like a very specific ask, formulate it. And again, the person might say no. But at least you would have, you know, when you moved on, you know, you'd be like, okay, that didn't work out. Let me figure out where I can get my need met somewhere else. I think that's all my thoughts. And again, I think I go back to, although I know all of these things, I go back to kind of like having to breathe through it, because it's really difficult when you get out of one pattern to like, I'm in between programs where I can still really feel like the old program running, and that fear and that sheer fear of not being accepted is coursing through my veins and is making it really difficult to kind of trust, you know, what I'm saying. But I also know different now, and I know that it's unavoidable. When you do things with integrity and consciousness, you're present through it all. So it makes it really easy to sort of go, I couldn't have done it in a different way. I couldn't have asked it in a different way. I couldn't have asked something different, you know? I couldn't have done anything different about it, because I've been conscious and present, and it feels really authentic to me. And so when it doesn't work out, you sort of understand that it's inevitable, because you were present through it all. And there wasn't a part of you, and you acted according to your wants and needs and desire, and you were there. So you're like, all right, like it sucks, but there's no other option. Because the people pleasing and the fawning, I've done it for years, and it hasn't led me to a modicum of myself and the beautiful life that I'm trying to create. it led me probably further and further away from myself and has created a lot of pain for myself and others because I wasn't honest with myself and I wasn't honest with others. That's it. There's no magic pill. You do have to sit with the discomfort. You do have to feel that sting. You have to feel it, and also not over-identify with it. And I guess kind of it goes back to my self-esteem tips, but I guess reinvest into yourself, because it does knock your confidence a little bit. It does knock your self-esteem a little bit. And so I think it's important that's my last tip, but to go back and do things for yourself that you like. To increase your self-esteem, to increase your ability to hold yourself, through the pain, and do things that you like. So I wrote an article about it. I'm filming a video, but I'm gonna do like something nice for myself. I made myself a cup of tea, and I think I'm gonna, watch a nice TV show for myself or read my book, and really try to bring myself back and through and breathe myself through it, and just take my time. Just take my time. Things pass. That feeling, that sting will pass. And that's it. It will pass. Everything passes. Everything, the good, the bad, everything will eventually move on. Life is inherently unstable in that way, and extremely stable. Things don't last. That's one thing that we can absolutely count on, that things don't last. And that's the beauty of it. That's all my tips. I hope it helped. I hope it can soothe a little bit of that pain inside your soul and mine. It certainly has. It brought me, I feel a little bit better now. And yeah, that's the important part. To breathe through it, and it will end, and just onto different things. I was going to say onto better things, but I don't know. Just onto different things. Bye.